Imagine the economic engine of a major state stalling out under a billion-dollar deficit, street-level chaos, and fierce political infighting.
Yeah, it's basically a complete breakdown of civic machinery, and it's happening right in front of us.
Right, so let's just drop you straight into the reality on the ground over a single Memorial Day weekend in Chicago. 39 people shot, 2 dead, 53 people arrested at a Hyde Park Beach takeover, where, get this, police recovered 9 weapons.
Wow, 9 weapons at a beach.
Yeah, and we're talking firearms, knives, tasers, even bear mace. And all of this is happening while the city is operating at a massive $1 billion deficit. Meanwhile, the historic Chicago Bears, a cultural staple since 1921, they are threatening to just pack up and leave.
Which is huge. I mean, you look at this, and it's a cascading failure. You lose the money, you lose the safety, you lose the businesses, and then, eventually the leadership fractures entirely.
Exactly. So today, our mission is to do a deep dive into a stack of highly critical commentary and political transcripts. We want to see exactly how critics are framing this sharp fracture in Illinois leadership.
And we're really opening the hood on these sources to look at the arguments, right?
Right, but before we get into it, I need to be very clear to you listening. These sources contain highly charged, right-wing political commentary. We are not taking sides here. We're not endorsing these viewpoints, and we aren't validating any of the political stances in the text.
No, not at all. We're just impartial reporters today.
Exactly. Our only goal is to impartially break down the facts, the arguments, and the data exactly as they appear in the source material so you can understand the core debate.
Right, because before you can even understand the political clashes making headlines, you have to understand the city's foundational financial strain. The money problem is what creates the environment for, well, absolutely everything else.
Totally. According to the sources we're reviewing, Chicago is described bluntly as being dead broke.
Yeah, and the sources put a very specific number on that. They highlight that the city is operating with a $1 billion deficit, which for a city government is paralyzing.
Because they can't just print money like the federal government, right?
Exactly. When a city is $1 billion in the red, it means a hard stop on basic civic functions. The commentators in our sources make a very pointed claim about where this money went, attributing this massive hole directly to the city, allocating funds to support illegal immigrants.
Right, and they argue that because the city is pulling from the general treasury to cover that crisis, there's just, no capital left for the local economy.
Which brings us to the Bears.
Chicago Bears, yeah.
It's crazy because they're such a huge part of the city's identity. But the sources point out the city just lacks the funds to offer any retention incentives to the team. So let's unpack that really quick.
Right.
What does a retention incentive actually mean here? Well, it's not just handing the billionaire owner a giant check. Retention incentives mean upgrading the public infrastructure around the stadium. It's offering property tax freezes, expanding public transit for game days, fixing the highways.
Oh, okay. So actual public works.
Right. And the sources argue Chicago is so deeply in the red, they can't even promise to fix the roads leading to Soldier Field. So without that, the franchise might relocate to the suburbs or even Indiana.
Which is a massive economic blow. You lose the team, you lose jobs, and you lose all that tourism revenue. But to me, the crazy part is it's not just giant sports franchises fleeing.
No, it's happening at the street level, too. The sources say general businesses are fleeing due to a mix of fiscal mismanagement and just unchecked retail crime.
Yeah, there's this really striking example in the text about a convenience store near Roosevelt and Canal. It got looted by dozens of teenagers, and the owner said this was the second time it happened in just a few weeks.
Right, and the connection there is that when a city runs a $1 billion deficit, things like police overtime are the first to vanish.
So fewer patrols on the street.
Exactly. For a mom-and-pop shop, getting looted twice in a few weeks means their insurance premiums will probably skyrocket, or their coverage just gets dropped.
Wow, yeah. So it's like trying to run a household budget where the roof is caving in, but you're spending your emergency funds elsewhere. And now your highest paying tenant, the Bears, is moving out.
And you refuse to fix the locks on the front door, so people keep getting robbed.
Right. So based on these sources, this top-level $1 billion deficit directly translates to mom-and-pop shops closing their doors because the deficit creates a lack of protection, right?
Precisely. The lack of protection invites the looting, and the looting destroys the business model. It's a downward spiral of lost tax revenue.
But the flight of business isn't happening in a vacuum. We have to move from the empty city coffers to the streets. The sources argued this retail flight is directly driven by what they're calling teen takeovers.
Yeah, the street-level data provided here is incredibly intense. The scale of these events just seems to overwhelm the active police force.
Like that incident near the University of Illinois at Chicago.
Right. 5 police officers were hospitalized after an 18-year-old driver just rammed their vehicle while they were trying to disperse a crowd.
And the sources note he was facing attempted murder charges. And then in the Little Village neighborhood, the text details a shooting where 14 people were hit. The youngest victim was just 14 years old.
It's tragic. And the commentator also zeroes in on that Hyde Park gathering we mentioned in the intro.
The one with the 53 arrests.
Yeah, crowds fighting, dancing on top of squad cars, throwing objects at police. And like you said, they found firearms, knives, bear mace.
Wait, okay, let me push back a little here. With numbers like these, 39 shot, 53 arrested, the sources are painting a picture of an absolute war zone.
They really are.
But wait, if the statistics are this severe, how is the city administration interpreting and framing these exact same events? Because usually mayors try to project calm, but how do you spin 39 people shot?
Well, that massive gap between the violent statistics and Mayor Brandon Johnson's chosen rhetoric is the entire core of the critics' argument.
Okay, what did he say?
According to the commentary, Mayor Johnson actually touted that Memorial Day weekend as a major success.
A success? Wait, really? With 2 people dead?
Yes. The commentator argues the mayor has this ideological opposition to order, but really, it's about how he controls the narrative with vocabulary. For example, he strongly objected to anyone using the word mob.
Oh, to describe the crowds.
Right. He insisted they just be called large gatherings and warned that the city must be very careful with language due to its history.
That feels a bit like a doctor refusing to call a broken leg a fracture, you know? Like insisting we just call it a spontaneous bone gathering.
That's a great way to put it.
Because if it's a fracture, you got a cast and a recovery plan. If it's a gathering, you just go home. Why do the sources focus so heavily on his specific vocabulary here rather than just his policies?
Because in leadership, language dictates policy. The critics argue that by refusing to use disciplinary language, the mayor removes the concept of consequences. If it's officially just a gathering, it emboldens the crowds and prevents actual policing.
I see. And this extends to the looting, too. When they talked about that convenience store near Roosevelt and Canal, the mayor praised police for engaging the youth, but then he lamented the outcome.
Yeah, the text highlights a quote where he said, "Unfortunately, arrests, were made."
Unfortunately, arrests were made for looting. That's wild.
The commentator heavily criticizes this. They claim he has a severe allergic reaction to accountability.
So what are his actual solutions then? If he doesn't want arrests, what's the plan?
The solutions highlighted in the text are, well, pretty disconnected from the immediate street violence. He relies on telling parents to make sure they know where their kids are at 1:30 a.m.
I mean, sure, but that's not a policy.
Right. The source also points out that he was taking meetings at the Vatican with the Pope to ask for reparations for slavery.
Wait, he went to the Vatican during all this?
According to the sources, yes. And locally, he's attempting to tax big tech companies, basically blaming social media for organizing the riots.
So teens use Instagram to organize a takeover, and the city tries to punish the app. That's like suing a car manufacturer because someone used a sedan to ram a storefront.
Exactly. The commentator mocks this as a complete abdication of duty. And this brings us to the climax of the sources, because when a city's leadership fundamentally disagrees on basic reality, the state eventually steps in.
Right, which leads to this explosive clash between 2 leaders of the exact same political party.
Illinois Governor JB Pritzker delivered this incredibly harsh public critique of Mayor Johnson. He called him incompetent, unserious, and utterly disorganized.
Wow. You don't usually see a governor publicly tear into a mayor of their own party like this. It's a total breakdown of basic government mechanics.
Oh, it gets worse. He reportedly called Johnson the worst person he's had the mispleasure of working with.
Jeez. What were his specific grievances?
Well, the bears, for one. Pritzker says they've been negotiating for 3 years, and Johnson has no plan at all to keep them. But the really damaging part is the budget dysfunction.
Okay, let's break that down, because budget talk can get dry, but this is important. What does this lack of communication mean for the listener?
Well, Pritzker notes the state budget process runs from November to February. That's when the money gets divided up for infrastructure and police. But he hears almost nothing from Johnson until May.
May. So the process ends in February, and the mayor shows up in May.
Right. He shows up late in the game with a list of demands for more state money. And by then, the money is gone.
So how does a delayed budget demand in May actually affect the citizens of Chicago?
The expert commentary clarifies that this disorganized budgeting means a total lack of state funding for essential services.
Which means no police overtime, no road fixes for the stadium.
Exactly.
Excellent.
It directly exacerbates the very crime and economic flight we discussed at the start of this deep dive. The city asks for money late because businesses are fleeing, but they can't get the money because they missed the deadline.
That is just a brutal cycle. And, this matters to you, the listener, regardless of whether you live in Chicago or not. This deep dive really acts as a critical case study in municipal governance.
It really does.
It shows exactly what happens to the economic engines of our country when you combine massive fiscal deficits, street-level crime, and a fractured leadership that, frankly, cannot even agree on how to communicate.
Yeah, and it leaves you with one final lingering question to mull over. If a city's leadership and a state's leadership fundamentally disagree on the basic language used to describe a problem, like calling a riot a large gathering, is it ever truly possible for them to collaborate on a practical, organized solution?
That's a great question. Because it's pretty hard to fix a stalling engine when the mechanics won't even admit it's broken.